Right, we are live streaming and recording, so we can start the meeting. So over to Rhian from Denbighshire.
Good morning all, welcome to this meeting of the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the Public Services Boards in Conwy and Denbighshire. I shall just go through the apologies first of all. We have received apologies from the councillors Jeff Corrie, Harry Saville, Joan Vaughan and David Williams. I think that all the others are here from what I can see. So a very warm welcome to this meeting.
Thank you.
Sorry, anybody having a problem? No. Yeah, well, the manner gyfieithu ar y pryd. There is simultaneous translation available. If you want to hear the proceedings in English, choose English. And if you want to hear it in Welsh, choose French, please. The meeting is being recorded and broadcast live online. If anything happens to the live webcast, it will still be recorded and will be available on the council's websites afterwards. If I may ask, if you are not speaking, please make sure that your microphones are muted so that there is no background noise. If you wish to speak, put up your electronic hand. If you have difficulty doing that, just raise your hand for us to see. Of course, this is the first meeting of the Joint Committee following the AGMs of both councils, and so we are required to elect a chair for this committee. And as per the terms of reference, the role of chair alternates every 2 years. Councillor Brian Cossey from Conwy has been chair for the past 2 years, so his tenure has come to an end. And Councillor Graham Timms of Denbighshire was vice chair. And as the chairmanship alternates between Denbighshire and Conwy, this time the chair shall be a member of Denbighshire County Council and the vice chair shall be a member of Conwy County Borough Council. But before I proceed to ask for nominations for the chair, I would like to thank Councillor Brian Cossey for his work over the past 2 years in the chair, and also to welcome the member who has replaced him, Councillor Don Milne from Conwy. So a warm welcome to you, Councillor Milne. Also, Denbighshire has changed one of its representatives, so I thank Councillor Peter Scott for his service on the committee, and I welcome Councillor Mary Roy Davis, who has replaced him. We shall move on then to invite nominations for the position of chair, and I shall ask for a nomination and a seconder, and also any other nominations, and if there will be a need to take a vote, we shall do that by a roll call. So if I may ask for nominations, please, from the among Denbighshire County Councillors for the chairmanship for the next 2 years.
I'd like to propose Councillor Graham Timms, if I may.
And could I second that, please?
Vinay.
Okay, diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? No. No. Okay, diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much. So Councillor Graham Timms has been nominated and that has been seconded. May I ask, Dawn will call you out your names if you just state if you are for or against, please.
Thank you, Rhian. So Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones.
For.
Jeff Corrie's apologised. Rachel Flynn.
For.
Thank you. Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Hugh Irvine.
For.
Mary Cloyd Davis.
Obliged.
Yvonne Lloyd.
Obliged.
Melvin Mile.
For.
Don Milne.
For.
Adwell Roberts.
Obliged.
Liz Roberts.
Obliged.
Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Graham Timms.
Sorry.
Thank you, Rhian. That's unanimous for Councillor Graham Timms to be chair.
Diolch yn fawr chi gyd. Felly gai
Thanks you all. So if I may welcome Councillor Timms and congratulate him on his election as chair of this joint committee for the next 2 years, and I shall turn the meeting over to his capable hands. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a good start, wasn't it? Apologies for not getting the muting right then. Thanks for that. We've got to proceed now to the appointment of the vice chair. So we need a nomination. Again, as Rhian said, from the terms of reference, it has to be a member of the Conwy authority for the next 2 years. So is there a nomination for vice chair?
I think Councillor Ifor Lloyd has his hand up, chair.
Okay, Ifor Lloyd.
Congratulations on your appointment, chair. May I propose Councillor Nigel Smith, please?
Okay, diolch. So is there a seconder for Nigel Smith? I can see Councillor Chris Hughes. Thank you. Is there any? Are there any more nominations?
I can't see any hands up, chair.
Okay, so do we proceed to a vote now?
Yes, I'll do a roll call if
Okay,
that's okay. Thank you. So 4 against or abstain. So Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones.
4.
Rachel Flynn.
4.
Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Hugh Irvine.
4.
Mary Cloyd Davis.
Obliged.
Ifor Lloyd.
Obliged.
Melvyn Mile.
4.
Don Milne.
4.
Adwell Roberts.
Obliged.
Liz Roberts.
Obliged.
Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
And Graham Timms.
4.
That's unanimous, chair.
Okay, thank you, and welcome to the vice chair as well, and thank you for taking that role on.
Thank you, Graham.
Looking forward to working with you. Can I just say, I mean, I know that Rhian mentioned this at the start about Councillor Brian Cossey, and I'm sure that we'd want to send our thanks as a scrutiny committee to him. It's been a difficult 2 years, hasn't it? It's a committee which is a new thing for us, working together on a scrutiny committee. It's been, after the first year, it's been absolutely dreadful and very difficult for us, and we're still feeling our way as a committee. So we'll look forward to the next 2 years and hope that we have an easier passage, certainly, and we sort ourselves out into sort of assuming the role that we should have. So let's move on then to item 4, which is declarations of interest. I just want to remind you that if you have any interests that you need to declare, you need to say that you have a declaration of interest and the nature of it, whether it be personal or prejudicial. And so as we go along in the meeting, does anyone want to declare any interest now in the agenda items?
I can't see any hands up, chair.
Okay, so let's move on. If you feel that you have got an issue, as always, interrupt and off we go. So urgent matters, there aren't any urgent matters. That's number 5. Number 6, minutes of previous meetings. That's on page 4 of the pack. Would someone like to propose that they're a correct record? Jeanette, thank you. Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones, thank you.
Chair,
And,
can I just interrupt you there? Sorry.
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
just to say I apologise for my absence at the last meeting. I had a family bereavement and I think it just sort of went over my head. I'm very sorry about that.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Rachel, for that. So just to accept the minutes are correct. So Jeanette's proposed that and Nigel has seconded that. Do we need to go round or can we just do it by approval, Dawn?
We can just do a show of hands. Councillor Ivar had his hand up. I'm not sure whether he wanted to comment.
I'm just going to second the approval of the minutes.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So can we just have a show of hands to say that we approve those minutes? Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks. They are approved. So in terms of the minutes, shall we have a look at any matters arising that anyone might have? I couldn't see anything obvious. I don't know if anyone else wanted to raise any issues on that. No. Okay. So that's item 6. Well, if we do all the rest of the items, then that speed will be ready for a coffee in about 10 minutes, and that'll be the end of the meeting. So let's keep going. I'm sure the next item will be a bit lengthier. The wellbeing assessment and community engagement update, and we've got quite a long set of documents on that one, which I'm sure people have already had a look at. But we've got Nicola Neal from Denbighshire to lead on this item, and she's going to begin by introducing it. So welcome, Nicola. Hi, Nicola.
Bore da pawb. Good morning. Thank you for the invitation this morning. If it's okay with you, Chair, I'm going to turn my camera off because my connection isn't very stable. I just wanted to greet you really, but I'll talk you through the report with my camera off so that I don't get all staccato.
That's fine. It's nice to see you though for these few seconds.
Thank you. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about the wellbeing assessment that is a significant piece of work for the officers that support the Public Service Board, and that's underway at the moment. So the wellbeing assessment itself is a statutory instrument under the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. It's a situational analysis of the county areas that will underpin the future strategic planning, both for public service boards and also for public bodies that cover the county areas. We produced the first one around 5 years ago, and the deadline that we're working to is we need to produce a wellbeing assessment by at least May 2022 in order for the Public Services Board to produce its wellbeing plan by May 2023. However, as I mentioned before, the wellbeing assessment is not just a Public Service Board instrument, it's also an instrument for all public bodies. And given the fact that local authorities need to produce their own wellbeing plans by October 2022, we will be working to a deadline of having a good first draft of this wellbeing assessment available for people to see by autumn of this year, so October 2021. So it's a significant piece of work, and work actually began at the beginning of this year. So in order to produce the assessment, there are two key work streams really. First of all, there's a data and research based situational analysis. And then the second work stream that will feed into the assessment is a significant piece of engagement work, and the two will come together to inform the overall assessment. So I'll just talk you through the work that's underway to date for each of those work streams. So first of all, in terms of the general research, we've developed a multi-agency group working across Conwy and Denbighshire who are working together to update the current web-based assessment that we've got. So they're each taking topics underneath the wellbeing goals and giving consideration to new research that's come to light. So to update the narrative around each of the goals, around what we know about each of these goals and the situation now, and also what we anticipate about for the future. So that's a piece of work that's been ongoing since around February this year. The group meets regularly. They've done, not only do they look at data that's available from their own bodies in order to get
sorry, Nicola, we just lost you for that last sentence.
Picture of the issues around. To complement that, there will be a significant piece of engagement work, and that is just starting now in both Conwy and Denbighshire. So the engagement work will take place with both the general public. All councillors will be invited to engage with the county conversation process, and also staff. And Conwy and Denbighshire will run their own engagement mechanisms, and I think for both authorities that work is either started or is about to start. Also, we need to engage with people with protected characteristics in order to inform the wellbeing assessment, and we will be exploring that work on a regional basis. So we'll be mapping engagement work that has already taken place to feed into the assessment, and we'll also be talking to organisations that represent people with protected characteristics to get their views about what their aspirations are for their communities in the future, what challenges they face, and what any corrective action that they see fit in order to make lives easier and to contribute to their well-being. In order to do this work, each year the Welsh Government makes a grant available on a regional basis, normally following the footprint of the Health Board. So in North Wales, there is a grant of around £87,000 that has been made available, and that collectively we've agreed to use that money to help produce the wellbeing assessments. So part of that money will be used for addressing any gaps in research that we as officers of the public bodies in the counties can't fill. So for example, in the last assessment, the area around or the section in the assessment around the cultural condition and situation of the counties was not as strong. So that's the kind of research that we'll try to fund through the grant. We will also use the grant to fund some of that engagement with people with protected characteristics on a regional basis, because the product of it will be useful across North Wales. Okay, so at the moment, work is progressing well. We don't have any concerns. That the officers and the teams are working well together. They're developing momentum, and if there are any issues or hitches that they come across, we're able to manage them within the officer groups. So we haven't got any issues or risks to raise with you or to alert you to today. We hope to conclude most of the research and the engagement probably by around September this year, in order to develop a good draft of that assessment by October of this year. And you would be a statutory consultee for that assessment, so we hope to be able to table this at a future meeting in October, November time with yourselves. Okay, so thank you. That was the overview I wanted to give you. So happy to take any questions. Diolch.
Okay, thank you. Just as a starter, really, how much do you expect the wellbeing assessment to change from the one that was around 2 years ago? Because we've had a pandemic. Are you expecting huge changes, or is it going to be just a tweaking of the former one?
Okay, so I'll answer that in two kind of phases if I can share. So first of all, just to give the group a bit of assurance that last time when we produced the wellbeing assessment, we were starting from scratch, and so it was a larger task really than it has been this time around. Nevertheless, it's still a large task, and our research teams are smaller than they were 5 years ago as well. But in terms of the scale of the task that we face at the moment, so because we've already got a foundation in place, that there are some areas where we may not have seen an awful lot of change. However, the impact of COVID in particular will have had an extraordinary impact, particularly when we look at young people and the work and the economy goal and the prosperous goal. And where there's a particular challenge there is that we're still in the middle of the pandemic. Actually, the pandemic hasn't ended, and we haven't felt the full effects of it. So we're very conscious of that, and that, you know, although we will be working to have a first draft of this assessment by October, we will continue to feel the impacts of it, and it will be important that we monitor it. So actually, with that in mind, one of the key partners at a regional level is Glyndŵr University, and they will work with us collectively, not beyond the production of this iteration of the wellbeing assessment, to help us to keep that assessment live and to keep reviewing the impact of COVID, for example, on our communities. So the key changes really have probably, the key changes that we need to look at are the impacts of COVID and potentially Brexit, when compared to the wellbeing assessment, its previous iteration.
Okay, thanks. I've got 4 speakers so far. They're all from Denbighshire. It's not a competition, but let's go first of all to Arwel Roberts, who I saw first.
Thank you very much to Nicola, and thanks to you, Mr. Chairman. In looking at this process, how much collaboration has there been with town and community councils and the city council we have in Denbighshire? And how much collaboration has there been with vulnerable people in our society? These are people who we tend to forget about at times. Has there been cooperation? Have you been canvassing their opinions on various things within this act? Thank you, Nicola.
Diolch fawr, Councillor Roberts. In terms of collaboration with city, town and community councils, we are just at the moment, actually, with the start of the engagement process is the appropriate time for us to start to engage with city, town and community councils. And certainly we have in Denbighshire, because we've started our engagement process, we have written out to the clerks of city, town and community councils to alert them to the fact that the county conversation, as we're badging the engagement exercise, that county conversation exercise is now live, and that we welcome their participation, and that we also ask them if they can encourage their constituents to participate in this, because it is important. You know, the last time when we produced the assessment, the rich information that we got from our communities was really valuable and really helped to shape the strategic plans that were developed from it. So engagement is really important. I would also expect that when we come to having a first draft, city, town and community councils, that draft will be shared with them, and again that we will invite their input. And the purpose of consulting on the draft really is to sense check the conclusions that we've reached, so that local input and the local reflection will be really valuable. Not only in the assessment do we have to provide commentary on Conwy and Denbighshire, but we also need to break it down by community area. So we will look at the well-being of community areas, so therefore the input of local politicians again will be really important at that juncture. In terms of communicating and involving vulnerable people, again, I think we're at the junction now that we're starting the county conversation, that now is the time when we would expect to start engaging with vulnerable people. So I mentioned earlier that on a regional basis we will be developing a plan to engage with people with protected characteristics. We'll also work with our colleagues, for example, in fields of housing, to see if they can help to support us to reach people that might be living at socioeconomic disadvantage, so that we're really trying to fashion the engagement to be as inclusive as possible. And again, once we've developed a good draft of the wellbeing assessment, the links that we've forged through the engagement, I'd hope that we can go back to those people who've contributed to the engagement to sense check the conclusions that we've come to. Diolch.
Thanks, Nicola. Is that okay, Arwel? Okay, thanks. Next speaker, we've got Melvin Mile, Rachel Flynn and Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones. So over to Melvin first.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Nicola, for the report. Can I just ask, sort of specifically on page 41, there's the mention of the two projects there, which were the electric bikes and the Glanmorva project in Rhyl. How were these projects selected, please, Nicola?
Mel, can I just interrupt for a second, because that's on the next item on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'll call you when we get to that stage. Is that okay? Thanks. So let's go to Rachel. Rachel Flynn.
Thank you, Chair. A question for Nicola. It was just about the Future Trends report. So this piece of work, is this done by Welsh Government, and then is it an own interpretation for the officers at Denbighshire, or the local authorities to assess, and then use the universities to explore those avenues of the new trends? Could you just elaborate a little bit more on that, please, Nicola?
Yes, certainly. The Future Trends report is a report that's produced by the Welsh Government. Yes, and that will be shared with us as local authorities and PSB officers. We would then, traditionally, the team that have produced that report would also offer engagement sessions with us. And I must say that the Welsh Government team this time round has really engaged well with PSB officers to talk to us about the kind of support that we need, the timings when we need these reports in order for them to be useful for our assessments. So it has been quite a collaborative effort. And so we would expect to have those national sessions on a national forum where we can talk about the Future Trends report, and then we will continue to work collectively at both a Conwy and Denbighshire and also a regional level to talk about the interpretation of those conclusions. Glyndŵr will be a key partner for helping us to pick through that analysis and research. And just to say that actually as PSB officers, we work really well on a regional level, and quite often if we want to speak to people from the national arena, national research organisations, then we'll invite them to come and talk to us at a regional level. To support with the analysis.
Okay, that's okay.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones. Jeanette.
Yeah, thank you for the report, Nicola. I find it, as a past health worker, really frustrating, all this, because a lot of deprivation has gone on for many years. What and how do you assess the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation? Because we all know what causes that. Poor housing leads to poor health, joblessness, crime. I mean, the list is endless. And it's gone on in Denbighshire, particularly in the Rhyl area, for many years now. So it doesn't really take a genius, does it, to work out exactly why some areas have this deprivation that continues to grow year on year. I feel frustrated with it. We throw a lot of money at it, and yet we never seem to turn that corner and reduce it. All the talking in the world isn't going to solve it. It's actions at what we need, and I'm all for action, not talking. What are you actually involving within the WIN documents? What are you doing about that?
Okay, thank you very much. In terms of the WIMD, the conclusions from that would be an important piece of evidence that would be included in the wellbeing assessment. So, you know, the production of the wellbeing assessment is the production of an evidence base so that we can inform the decision makers and those people that develop strategy in order to help them focus, to help them identify where they need to focus efforts in the future. So the WIMD will be incorporated into that, and it will be done so on both a county-wide basis and also down at community area level, which I referred to before. deprivation, yep, it's really stubborn and really tricky to address, and has been for a number of years, as you rightly say. I would suggest that the PSB is potentially a really good vehicle for trying to address some of those stubborn issues, because those issues are really complex, they're multifaceted, and they need a collaborative effort from the public sector to try to address them. And I think what we've got in the terms of the Public Service Board is that multi-agency, really high level senior strategic vehicle to hopefully address the issues that are causing the deprivation. So I think that in terms of translating the knowledge into action, at the moment, this wellbeing assessment is about collecting that evidence and assessing the situation where we are now. I think in terms of translating things into action, that's the challenge for us and for the Public Service Board, and to develop that in the future as they develop their new wellbeing plan.
Okay, is that okay, Jeanette?
Can I come back, please, Chair, if you don't mind?
Yes.
Thank you. Just briefly. I hear what you're saying, Nicola, but it doesn't work, does it? Because, I mean, I've been a councillor now for nearly 20 years in rural area. Members highlight, as do all councillors throughout their area, but nothing ever seems to change, but the talk seems to go on. That's what I find very frustrating. I'm chair of Partnership Scrutiny. I try very hard as the chair of that to address health issues as well as other problems within the communities. And I feel always as if I'm coming up against a brick wall. The women's document, it clearly outlines all the issues, and yet never seems to change. And we also seem to, instead of changing it, Nicola, we sort of add to it year on year. So whereas we had one area of deprivation in Rhyl, we now have two areas of deprivation in Rhyl. And that concerns me greatly because it's almost into three areas now. So please tell me, when will the talking stop and when will action begin? We all know, we're sensible people, you know. We already understand exactly what causes deprivation, and housing is at the top of it. We still have a very large majority in these areas of HMOs. Licenses has helped in some respect, but not totally. And I have really concerns that before I leave this mortal planet, I'm not going anywhere until I can see this area of deprivation not on the list.
Okay, thanks, Jeanette. I mean, I think that was more a statement than something for a response. But,
well, I would like a response, Chair. I would like to know exactly if it is being prioritised.
Do you want to make a quick comment, Nicola?
I will, although it might be getting into some areas that are beyond my remit, and but obviously, if we're talking about Rhyl in particular, obviously it's significant deprivation there. From a Denbighshire County Council point of view, we do have a Rhyl programme board and other work that's ongoing. I wonder, Chair and Councillor Chamberlain-Jones, whether some of the issues that you're talking about might be appropriate for bringing to Partnership Scrutiny, if in Denbighshire County Council.
I'm happy with that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Nicola. I mean, the problem with this item on the agenda today is that this is going to feed into wellbeing plan, and the wellbeing plan is going to be started in 2 years' time. So it's sort of we're about 3 years ahead of the actual action behind the things that are going to be looked at. So it's quite a difficult process, but we understand that there is that connection between what's actually happening on the ground and what's being planned for the future. And I think we've got to make sure that we understand that distinction, haven't we? Okay, Councillor Nigel Smith, looks very nice where you are.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is. And congratulations on your election.
It's just a question really on the report. It's obviously this report is obviously heavy on data, and I'm just questioning the robustness of the data and whether we are looking at the right data sets. Just in mindful of Jeanette's comments,
I think it went down, didn't it?
How the deprivation in real is growing rather than decreasing, and you know, data is it's a very technical thing, and you can read it in different. You can look at it in one way and get one answer. You look at it in a different way, and get a different answer. And I just wonder whether we are focusing on the right data sets and whether they're being collected in the correct manner, robustly. That's my question.
Okay, thanks. Nicola, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, thank you. So in terms of the data that's being collected, we have got a team of researchers who are working on this from the different organisations that represent the PSB, and it is their profession. So I feel assured that they understand data, how to interrogate it, what's valuable, and and they have a good professional and educated view of the kinds of conclusions that they can draw from the data. In addition to that, just to corroborate and find assurance, we have listened to and taken heed of feedback that we've had from the Future Generations Commissioner and the Welsh Government, and some of the guidance that they've given us, I think, is included in the appendices. And as PSB officers, we regularly attend national forums as well to talk about the development of the wellbeing assessments, to get guidance and also to check in with the approaches that we're taking as well. So there is, I think, in response to the question, in view of the fact that we are working with a team of professional researchers, that we receive information from national professional research teams, and that we also take on board advice and guidance from the Welsh Government and the Future Generation Commissioners, I think that we can be assured that we're checking the right types of data and hopefully drawing the right types of conclusions as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Are you happy with that, Nigel?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ivor Lloyd.
Just a question gyffredinol.
Just a general question for Nicola.
We've lost the connection there. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lloyd. Could you just? We just missed that. Then we just lost your connection for a while. So I don't know if you could start again.
Yeah, sorry, Mark.
Sorry, the connection is not very good. Yes, it's a general question to Nicola regarding when the latest census data will be fed into the strategy before us.
Okay, thanks, Nicola.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, the release of the census data won't coincide with the publication of the first draft of this wellbeing assessment. However, our wellbeing assessment is web-based, so it isn't a document that sits on a shelf and goes dusty. It's our intention that it can be updated and used to inform future decision making, and maybe as evidence for future business cases, as communities or organisations want to develop project plans as well. So I think in the future, we would certainly hope to review the wellbeing assessment, and we have done that since we produced the first wellbeing assessment around 5 years ago. Intermittently, as new data has come out that's significant and could change some of the conclusions for the assessment, we have updated it, and I would expect that we take the same approach for any census data.
Thanks. Do you know when it is, Nicola, that it's available, the census data?
I'm not 100% sure, and I know that it does normally get released in tranches as well. I don't know if Fran, if you know anything further.
No, sorry. I think it's going to be quite considerable time, though. It's not immediate, is it?
I would think we'd be looking towards the tail end of 2022.
Okay, thanks.
Before we'd hear anything. Yeah.
Ivor, are you satisfied with that?
Yeah, diolch. Yeah, just ar gefn y cwestiwn there.
Yes, so just on the back of that question, is there any joint working being done with systems such as the Welsh language initiatives to obtain fresh information on the status of the Welsh language in our communities and the status of heritage and culture? Has any joint working been done there?
Okay, diolch. Nicola?
Yes, thank you. So there are chapters within the wellbeing assessment around community cohesion and Welsh language and culture. So we will be sourcing information about this, about the Welsh language, you know, the impact of COVID on the Welsh language as well. These will all be considerations that we give regard to as we're developing the assessment. And again, culture and heritage is part of that, of the wellbeing assessment, so they will be given consideration to. And probably I would imagine that predominantly the research that we'll gather will be research that's been undertaken on a national level. It's easier to access research on those types of topics at a national rather than local level, but we will see what local information that we can drill down into as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Rachel, is that an old hand or is it a new hand?
No, Chair, it's a new hand. Thank you.
Okay, off you go.
I'm not sure if you're the best placed person to answer this, Nicola, but I'll just ask anyway. So with regards to the pandemic and everything we've been through, the Health Board is in quite a backlog situation with regards to people waiting times. And also we've had a backlog for years now with mental health. CAMS, you know, it is notoriously known for backlogs. I'm just wondering how this complex picture is fitted into this future generations paper report that's being put together. Is there a lot of transparency from the Health Board? And I just wanted to acknowledge Jeanette. I do feel for you, Jeanette, and I understand and I hear, and the way I understand it is that it's this complex feeding situation where local authorities, we all have our best placed people for young persons champions, old people's champions, disability champions, and then we can use all of those people to gather that information, feed it back into the council, and the council can then feed that back in. So it's kind of a feeding system. So we can all make a difference if we start at the ground level in our own areas. We're all making a difference. So you are making a difference, Jeanette.
Sure, Jeanette's pleased for that reassurance. Okay, well, we don't have any other questions, so we need to just accept the report. So I don't know if someone can propose that we note the presentation.
Oh, sorry, Chair, I didn't get a response from my question.
Thank you.
Oh,
thank you, Councillor.
Rushing on, yeah. Going back to Nicola.
In relation to health data, so health is a section of the wellbeing assessment, as we'd expect, and there is certainly, you know, we know that there are pre-existing topics on mental health and waiting times that we would expect that to be included, and I know that there is provision made for that within the assessment, and that updating those kinds of chapters is part of the work plan as well as we produce this assessment. In terms of the transparency of that data, it's in production at the moment, so I think that you know, that's something that we can look at, and you might want to provide yourselves with assurance over that question in the future. But my feeling when I speak to health colleagues is that they're concerned about these issues as well. I don't think that they'd want to shy away from them or try to hide them, especially because the purpose of this assessment is to identify pressures and to identify things that need to be improved on or addressed in the future. Therefore, it's in their interest to be transparent about them in order to ensure, you know, try to schedule resource and capacity to address the issues that they're facing. Thank you.
Okay, are you okay, Rachel?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's reassured me, actually. Thank you.
You made the point so well that I didn't even want to respond, to say. We need to just accept the report. So we need someone to propose that they note that we have noted the presentation. Can I see someone? Okay, Councillor Hugh Irving, I can see, and someone to second that. Councillor Rachel Flynn.
Okay.
Councillor Rachel Flynn, thank you. So can we just have a quick show of hands to say that we accept that presentation? Thank you very much. And can I thank Nicola for coming along this morning? You have a slot booked on the next meeting, which is in October. So you've got a busy summer ahead to get all this information together, and we look forward to seeing your first draft in October. So thank you. Sorry, I've just been told it's November. So I look forward to that. Yeah. There we are. You just breathed a sigh of relief, didn't you? Okay, thank you. So moving on to the next item 8, to receive the Public Services Board's annual report. Doesn't seem all that long ago since we received the last annual report. It really was a year ago, but there's so much happened over that time that time has gone into we've all gone into some sort of strange TARDIS, haven't we? Seemed like it anyway. But Fran Lewis is going to introduce the report to us. Over to you, Fran, and welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. And like Nicola, I think given my connection from Anglesey, I'm going to take video off to present this. I do apologise if you can hear the odd drilling in the background. We have got builders in. But I have got big holes in the side of my house, so I can't get them to stop. Right, so to take you to page 36 of the agenda pack, that's the start of the annual report. And I'll just give you a very quick overview before we hand over for questions. So this is the third year of our 5-year wellbeing plan for the PSB. But as Councillor Graham has just said, that this last year has been dominated by the coronavirus pandemic. And as a result of that, we did have to cancel some of our board meetings. In fact, 2 meetings were cancelled in the March and September, but we did carry on with other virtual meetings, some of which had to be closed to the public because we didn't have translation facilities at the time. But as soon as that functionality came back on board, we did open them back up to the public. So I want to reassure members that whilst PSB members did have to cancel some meetings, that wasn't a sign that they weren't collaborating. It was very much a collaborative year, but obviously because it was about the response to the pandemic, that happened through the remit of the North Wales Local Resilience Forum in accordance with the Civil Contingencies Act. So just to reassure you that it wasn't a case of, senior PSB members not talking to each other. It was just within a different remit. And we've included within the annual report an overview of some of the actions that were undertaken. I'm sure you're all familiar through your committee meetings as to the amazing work that's gone on collaboratively to respond to the pandemic. And they're listed there on page 36. Moving on to page 37, when the PSB did start to meet again virtually, the first thing that happened was a light touch review of the priorities to make sure that they were still relevant in light of the pandemic, and assurance was given that they did still hold true, and some additional focus areas were added to the priorities as well. If I start with the first of the 3 priorities, in terms of mental health, the subgroup working on this was paused owing to the pandemic. That was because the lead for this area was Public Health Wales, and as you can imagine, they have been incredibly busy during this period dealing with the pandemic. But we've put within the report some reassurance that it wasn't a case of no work happening, and again, there's a lot of information there in terms of work that was ongoing, in particularly in relation to rural areas and supporting farmers in terms of their mental health. So there are some good examples. And in terms of going forward, a subgroup has been set up to sort of restart the mental health theme. Unfortunately, the meetings have had to be deferred. Again, that's owing to changes in personnel in Public Health Wales. But as soon as we have been notified as to who will lead the subgroup, we will be restarting that work. And you can see on page 38 the areas that they plan to progress in the future. So focusing on farming and rural communities and mental well-being of children, particularly in educational settings. So we're hoping to restart that soon as when we've got information from Public Health Wales. Moving on to page 39, the second priority was the communities, supporting community empowerment. And it's pleasing to note that, again, despite the lockdowns, the lead here, Denbighshire Voluntary Services Council, have made good progress in relation to dementia aware. And they have managed to shift their network meetings online and have actually gone from strength to strength. The other areas were to look at social prescribing and looking at whole system support and looking at digital connectivity. This was a new topic area, and it's pleasing to report that we have taken a report to the PSB in November, and further discussions are taking place with North Wales Economic Ambition Board to look at how we can improve digital connectivity. So that's going to be a regional approach. And I think in light of the way we're all working now, that is really, really important. So in terms of what difference has been made, as I said, dementia awareness has been going from strength to strength. And the next steps there are to continue to work with local communities to influence and support them becoming dementia-friendly groups. In relation to digital connectivity, that's going to be going back to the PSB at a future date when we know how we can progress that as well. The final priority is environment. In terms of what we managed to do there, we had, just prior to the pandemic, launched the community green pledges, and that was going really well. We'd had an initial flurry of pledges coming in, but like everything else, that had to be paused whilst we were dealing with lockdowns, because we didn't really want to encourage people getting together at that time. However, we're pleased to say that we've done a thorough review of the green pledges, and we are in the process of relaunching that. And at the time of writing the annual report, we'd had our 5th green pledge in. And our plan is to go back out to show these case studies that are listed on page 40 to encourage communities to think about how they can make a difference in terms of, you know, grassroots, excuse the pun, but the grassroots approach to environmental improvements. So we're confident that we can get that going again shortly. And Hannah, who's on the call as well, has done a lot of work to review that and to make sure that our pages on the website have been updated to be accessible as well. Other areas under the environmental work stream is a common organisational environmental framework, and that framework has been reviewed by the subgroup. We've also been working with Welsh Government in terms of a very short project. It will only run till Christmas, to look at certain aspects of procurement in relation to carbon reduction, which will support, the outputs of that will support the development of this environmental framework. And I am aware, whilst it's outside the remit of the Conwy and Denbighshire PSB, there is a regional officer group that's been established to look at carbon reduction more generally, and obviously that will feed into our work to progress this environment framework. A new area is the green and blue spaces. This is new as a result of COVID, and we're looking at how we can build on the connection. I'm so sorry if you can hear hammering. Build on the reconnection that communities have made during the lockdown, how we can build on that enthusiasm for environmental improvements, and the fact that we have enjoyed going out and using our green and blue spaces more during lockdowns. So that's a new area that's going to be progressed. And then finally, thanks to NRW, we have been able to develop 2 local wellbeing projects. So this was just a small grant, but very much appreciated, a grant of £25,000 that's been allocated to 2 projects. And I know, I think it was Councillor Melvin was going to ask, how was that allocated? To answer that, we have got an environmental subgroup, and basically offers were made out to those leads to say, if you have any particular environmental projects that would fit the criteria of the NRW grant, then please submit them. Only 2 projects were put forward. The first being the Coastal Electric Bike Empowerment Programme in Conwy, and the second being the Community Woodland in Denbighshire. So a decision was made that it would be fair, particularly as we are a Conwy and Denbighshire PSB, to split the funds between those 2 proposals that were put forward. So that's very simply how they were allocated. In terms of the Coastal Electric Bike project, those bikes have now been purchased, and as you can see within the annual report, this is really about expanding an existing project that has been rurally based up to now to bring it to the coast, so to offer the e-bikes for use along the Conwy to Mostyn, the Colwyn Bay Port Arias area along the front there. And you can see within the report that the aim there is about breaking down those barriers in terms of the cost of equipment and lack of confidence or experience in cycling, and getting people using a sustainable model of transport. And we will be updating in terms of the impact on that as and when they are allowed to get going. I think we're nearly there in terms of the Welsh Government alert levels, but we will give updates on that. Likewise, moving to the Glanmorva Community Woodland project, you can see within the annual report that this was about basically using the money to make what was a derelict area of land that had been used during the lockdown much more accessible to the local community, and in particular to families, with and making it accessible for prams and wheelchairs, and using the funds to deter the off-road motorbikes gaining access to the site. So again, not a lot of money, but I think in terms of impact, potentially really powerful in terms of the environment and people's enjoyment of the lovely landscape that we have across the two counties. In terms of other areas of work that we've been doing during the last year, we took the opportunity to review our key risks, and we have a Conwy and Denbighshire website that we had to make sure was accessible in terms of new legislation. So we've completed that. And we've also been working to address the recommendations from Audit Wales in terms of their review into PSBs. That we will come on to into the next agenda item, as well as also noted there on page 43 that we contributed to the Welsh Parliament Public Accounts Committee review into the Wellbeing Act. And again, that's on the agenda. In terms of looking forward then, we are proud, just taking you to page 44, we're proud that we're able to work collaboratively across North Wales. We have very close links with other officers in the other PSBs, and we are working with Glyndŵr University, who are a member of some of the PSBs, to look at how we can maximise the partnership landscape and reduce duplication. So looking forward, we're really excited that we're going to be working with Glyndŵr University and also Co-Production Wales to look at how we can improve our approach to engagement. We've clearly got a very busy year, as Nicola has already said, in terms of implementing the responsibilities into the wellbeing assessment and working with local communities to do the engagement of that wellbeing assessment as well. So they are the key points that I wanted to highlight in terms of this year's annual report, and I'll hand back to you, Chair, in terms of any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. We can hear the building work going on. Let's hope it progresses quickly. I just want to come back to Councillor Melvin Marl, because you did answer his question, or you answered his question. I just want to check that that's okay with him, and I'll give him first dibs as well if there's anything else that's cropped up. Mel.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sorry for sort of jumping the gun the last time around. Just one other little point. Can I just ask how it was publicised? I didn't quite catch that. How were communities told about the the opportunity to sort of to put in for the grant? That's all. Thank you.
This was an NRW grant specifically for the PSB. So the invite went to PSB organisations and officers as opposed to the community, because it had to sit within the priority under the environmental priority within the PSB wellbeing plan. So it went to partner organisations as opposed to communities.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Is that a standard thing that happens, so that, I mean, presumably the only people that would get a chance of getting the funding would be people who'd already created links with people who are in the PSB?
No, it was just the specifics around this particular pot of money and what NRW had specified that the funding could be spent on. Obviously, if we had access to a different pot of money, we would look at the criteria and open it further, but it was just around the remit of this particular grant.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Merrick Lloyd-Davis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to on your appointments. May I give thanks for the reports, and for new members such as me, it's very interesting and full of information, but I wonder, Fran, if you could help me with page 39. For some reason, we've got two numbers on each page. It states page 39 and then page 37. I don't know what that is. Perhaps you can help me there. But under point number 1, you mentioned mental health. There are some acronyms there: DPJ, Mind, ICAN, and then RABI. Could you let me know what those are, please? And then my second question, just this, on page 41 or 43. I don't have it on paper this time, so it takes a bit more time to manipulate the pages. The electric bicycles you talk about there are excellent things. There are quite a few of them in Cardiff as well. There was an accident recently, and the person was injured. I don't recall all the details, but perhaps will there be any information whether there was a problem with the bike, or whether it was just an accident that happened? I don't know if you have heard about that incident. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Fran.
Okay, thank you. I'm not aware of any accidents, I'm afraid, so I can't respond to that. What I can assure you is that the project that we are doing through the PSB is off-road, so it's along a cycle track, and obviously has a myriad of risk assessments and processes in place to make sure that participants are kept as safe as possible. In terms of the acronyms, they are the names of organisations. So Mind Cymru is a mental health charity, and likewise ICAN is as well. I'm sorry, I don't know what RABI stands for. I'll have to do a quick Google. You've got me on the spot. I think it's a farming organisation. But we'll try and do it.
I'm told it's the Royal Agricultural Benevolent Institution.
Thank you. Someone can Google quicker than me. It's terrible, isn't it? We just get used to these acronyms. But yeah, they are names of organisations.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Arwell-Roberts.
Thank you once more for being given the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman, and I should have congratulated you as well. Following up from what Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis said, may I ask what is meant by ACE, that is under the mental well-being of children in educational institutions? Teachers must take in all sorts of things as part of their work. What kind of support is will be provided to school staff, not only in school, but these children who suffer mental health problems out in the community as well? What work is being done with parents and carers within both counties? And moving on to communities supporting community empowerment, Denbighshire, I know, has appointed 8 people to help with dementia within the community. And as a person who's been involved in setting up a dementia group in Rhuddlan, and one of the best, if I may say so, in Denbighshire, how many of them do you have at the moment across both counties? They do very, very important work, and I would like to hear more details about this crucial work that's being done to support people living with dementia. Thank you, Fran.
Okay, thanks, Fran.
Thank you. The ACE is an acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences. Apologies, I'd missed that acronym. In terms of what is going on, both in relation to supporting families and children's, and also your query about dementia support, if I take the first question, as I said when I was presenting the annual report, the mental wellbeing subgroup was due to meet, but has been paused owing to obviously Public Health Wales focus on the COVID response. So they haven't met again yet. The update that's within the annual report is about where they're going to focus on. That said, quite rightly, as you point out, it is really important that we look at supporting families and schools. And I do know that certainly through our safeguarding boards, there's a huge amount of work that's going on there in relation to adverse childhood experiences. I don't have the detail of that in front of me today. I think that would be a whole other agenda item in terms of the work that's going on. In terms of the dementia question, Nicola, I don't know if you can assist with this in relation to Denbighshire. I don't have that data to hand in terms of how many groups there are.
Yes, okay, thank you. Again, I haven't got that information quite to hand, but I understand that there are around 4 communities in Denbighshire that are now dementia-friendly communities, and another couple that are working to that as well. So I don't know if that helps with your question, Councillor Roberts.
I had thought there were more than that in Denbighshire, perhaps due to the lockdown, that they have been unable to meet and that it's no longer happening, which is a cause of some concern for us because their work is so important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Don Milne, welcome to the committee, and over to you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your welcome, Chair, and it's a pleasure to be with you now. And yeah, just a couple of quick questions from the mention of digital connectivity is something that seemed to crop up in a lot of our committees, a lot of our areas, and of course a major highlight during COVID. Do you think that we should have, or there should be some more overall coordination of this, and if so, where could that lie? And secondly, on the green pledges, again, awkward time to implement this great idea. What potential growth do you think there is in this? And are you setting some form of sort of target or aim, not something to be tied to, but sort of hopeful achievement of how many pledges we can actually get on board?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Don. In terms of digital connectivity, that is something that's happening regionally under the North Wales Economic Ambition Board. So we are, working collaboratively with them, that they will be the lead, and certainly I can speak from Conway's point of view. That has been something that we've been looking at. Our officers are, fully aware of where the not spots are, so to speak, and linking in regionally as to how we can address that. In relation to the green pledges, no, we haven't set a target. What we want to do is build on the fact that actually, whilst there has been obviously considerable stress in relation to COVID, there has also, through our behaviour changes, been a real opportunity to be more environmentally friendly and reduce our carbon footprint. And that's the approach with our launch, really, is that we want to just go back out to our stakeholders that we've already got a huge list of, and to showcase the pledges that we've had in already as case studies, to say, look what communities been able to do, and just actively encourage communities to consider how they've changed things, and does that therefore enable them to qualify for a pledge? Because we are very aware, aren't we, that a lot of us have reflected on the last 15 months and decided that we want to keep some of the changes that we've made because they are more environmentally friendly. So it's a real opportunity to celebrate that through communities, through the green pledges, but no target as such.
Okay, you happy with that, Councillor Milne?
Yes, thanks for the follow.
Okay, thanks. Just on the green pledges, I mean, I mentioned this at the last meeting and was asking how many community and town councils and city councils, sorry, St Asaph, in our area, and there were an astonishing number. I can't remember what it is now, but it was quite a large number. I think at very least, we should see the majority of those at least doing some green pledges. And then when we start including scout groups and that sort of thing, there could easily be 100 or 200. And I know Councillor Milne was saying, have you got a target? Well, I think that's a target for me. When we get a couple of hundred, then we'll know that it's actually working. But having 5 is not going to make a great difference, I don't think. Apart from to those 5 organisations, of course. I just wanted to mention, I haven't got any more speakers now on that, but I just wanted to bring in one thing about attendance at meetings. It was the last part of the report, I think, on page 45. It says ways of getting involved. The link on the dates, and just to be pedantic, the link on the dates and agendas one, if you click that, it goes to an unknown website, because it should be Conwy and Denbighshire PSB, I think, and it says LSB at the end instead. If you change that, then it does take you onto the right website, and it shows the dates of the meetings that are coming up, and there is a meeting, I think, on the 15th. Can someone confirm that for me? Is it the 15th of this month, which is it next Tuesday? I don't know if anyone, obviously not, and the link doesn't work, so we can't check it online, but I think it's on Tuesday. But I would encourage committee members to perhaps go along to not every PSB, but an occasional one to see how they work, and then it makes our work easier, doesn't it, when we're scrutinising their work. Has someone got a date for that, anyone? Fran?
Sorry, yes, there is a meeting on the 16th, but that's actually a workshop as opposed to a public meeting. But thank you for checking the links for us, and well spotted. We'll definitely get that sorted.
Just trying to show that I've read the paper.
Absolutely, that's always handy. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So no more comments on that. So could we have someone to propose that we note the presentation? Councillor Merrick Lloyd. Let me see. Councillor Merrick Lloyd Davis, and I can see Councillor Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones as well. Are we all happy to agree with that? Show of hands. Okay, thank you very much. Well, it's 11:15. Shall we just have a 10 minutes, but let's make it just 10 minutes and then come back at that at 25 past to restart. Okay? Diolch yn fawr. If you Okay, I don't know if people have got their cameras off or they're still in the kitchen making a cup of tea or something, but I can see people appearing now. Okay, croissant all, let's get cracking again. On to agenda item 9, and we've got 2 reports there, and the first one, the Public Accounts Committee report. We're going to just have a brief introduction, then we don't want to spend a long time on these because they're very detailed, and they're not directly with the PSB, they're just illuminating the work that we're doing. So we're not going to spend long on them, but Fran's going to take us through. Can you take us through the first report, Fran, please, the Public Accounts Committee?
I think Fran, Chair, she's trying to join the meeting again.
Right.
So I think she's just joining the meeting. We're just trying to let her in. So
okay,
just bear with us.
Let's just wait for a second and see if we can.
Doesn't appear to have come in yet, I'm afraid.
Maybe the builders have cut the telephone line.
I don't know whether Nicola can take the report, maybe?
Yes, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you, yes.
Okay, you saved the day, Nicola, well done.
Just a brief overview really of the report. So just to give you a little bit of background context. So this is a Public Accounts Committee review of the implementation of the Act that was undertaken by the Welsh Government early in 2020. And the report was produced I think at the tail end of 2020 as well. Many of the recommendations in there actually pertain to support that the Welsh Government can give in order to provide, in order to aid the implementation and the effectiveness of the Act, and also many of the recommendations also focus on the support that the well-being of Future Generation Commissioner's Office can give, again, to strengthen the implementation and the effectiveness of the Act. The report was actually produced earlier this calendar year, just before we went into the pre-election period. So the Welsh Government have given a commitment that they will review the recommendations within this report within the first 6 months of the new administration. And some of those recommendations pertain to the funding of public service boards, because at the moment, the only funding that's received is an annual grant. And it was certainly noted by the Public Accounts Committee that public service boards themselves might be more effective if they had budget made available to them. So we'll eagerly await conclusion from that. But broadly, I think that much hinges really on the Welsh Government's response to this report. So that is something that we'd expect to receive by the autumn of this year. Thank you.
I think Fran is in the meeting now, Chair.
Okay.
Okay. Fran, Nicola just gave us a brief introduction. I don't know if you want to I don't know how much you heard, or if you want to add anything to that, or if there are particular points that you want to make. Fran? You're on mute, Fran.
Oh. She's obviously in the meeting but can't connect.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any, do you have any questions about the report, or is there anything else that you'd like me to cover at all?
I think, Mel, did you have a point you wanted to make on this? Just
yeah, sorry, I was struggling with the unmute again. I'd just like to make, obviously, I'd just like to make a point, really. I'm quite disappointed in the results from the community. Sort of officers and the committee members and everyone are sort of getting on with the job. But just for example, I was looking at page, let me go to page 66. So in March, oh, we don't, hang on, it's page 66, engaging young people, November 2020. We write to over 70 educational establishments. You must forgive me, I lost a filling in a rear tooth yesterday, and I've been chewing my cheek all night. I have an appointment at 1 o'clock, so I'm a bit, so we write to over 70 educational establishments to ask for young people's views on the Act, what the Act means to them. We received 2 responses representing the views of 14 people. Moving down to page 72, of those 14 responses from students, only 2 had heard of the Act. Well, it's a bit, disheartening, really, isn't it? I mean, I know it's not a barrier to implementation on this, but I think the point here is that everyone needs to be consulting with communities and with people more. And it's just a point, there's nothing to be said about it at this point, but I'm just making a point. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think I felt a bit disappointed as well. It was, I thought it would be a really positive report, and it didn't seem to be very positive at all, really. Because certainly, I mean, I've only been a councillor since 2017, but this legislation has really made a huge difference, I think, the way that councils work, to my mind anyway. So I was a bit disappointed that it was quite a negative report. But certainly public engagement, I'm always surprised at how little people actually engage when you actually try to get their comments, unless you've got a particularly horrible Facebook page, no reference to anything around our area. Any other comments?
I was just going to reiterate what you just said there, is the fact that, trying to get the local residents to engage in anything is it's a real struggle. It really, really is, and has been for, well, ever since I've been a councillor, which is not much longer than you, since 2012. So I presume it's an age-long thing.
Councillor Mary, sorry, I've just got Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis, and then I'll come back to you, Rachel.
At that point.
Oh, go on then, Rachel.
No,
go on.
What I was going to say is there's actually apps now that they pay you to do surveys, and that's the way forward now, I think, with research.
Pay people. Always works. Councillor Mary Lloyd Davis.
Yeah, diolch cwestiwn sydd wedi cael ei godi.
Yes, it's fair enough, really, that unless that these people have been involved or have had to use the Act for some purpose themselves, then they're not going to be interested. That's how I've seen it in the years I've been councillor. It's only when they need the information and need the support from you and from ourselves as councillors or from the local council, that's the only time that these things arise. And then they'll ask you, where can I get an answer for a certain question? And they say, well, look, the Act is here and they can access it. I think that's how it happens. People have got plenty of other things to do in their lives, trying to survive and pay their mortgage and so on. And I think that's is the issue, that unless you have a particular interest in local government, very often these things don't come into your consideration.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to be Googling how to write apps when I get home and see if I can make some money. Anybody else to make a comment? Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones. Oh, we can't hear you yet, Jeanette. Sorry, you're on mute.
The first question is, how do I find where to raise the hand?
Oh dear.
Anyway, what I was going to say is that over the years, I've found I had a community centre and I used to have regular meetings there. And over the years, as you resolve issues, they become less and less people attend, which is what Merrick says, really. People only need you or come and ask questions or get involved when it's something directly involving them personally. And, you know, it's successful if, like I've lost my community centre now back to a residential housing, which was a council flat, because nobody was turning up because they didn't have any issues. So I think in some ways that's good. And I'm interested in the apps that Rachel says, because being long in the tooth, I'm not really up with technology. As I say, I couldn't even find where the hand was. So I'll appreciate you telling me that, Chair, please.
Go to participants, and you'll get it there. Click on that, and I'm sure you'll get there somehow.
Participants, okay.
Yeah. Click on participants, and then it comes up as.
And click my own hand, as in, is that right?
No, just below the list, it comes up raise hand, and click there. Okay, so no other comments on that. So let's go on to the next report. Which
Chair, I think Councillor Nigel's had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, didn't see.
I was just only going to comment on Janet's. What Janet said is that I found personally that some people are willing to accept things that I would not consider the standard parameters of life. They seem to be, I don't know, they seem to have lost the will to want things to change. And particularly, for instance, in Real West or in Sandy Cove in Kimble Bay, which are all areas of deprivation, that they seem to accept things that I wouldn't want to see in my area, and they think it's the norm, or don't bother to ask for help. And I'll visit those areas and say, you know, what about all this? You're not doing anything about it, or should we do something about it? And, you know, they're really pleased when you can help them, but they just seem, I don't know, void of any concern about their surroundings sometimes.
I think that's a challenge in every area of council work, isn't it? How to get people engaged and actually respond to all sorts of consultations and so on. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So let's move on to the next report, which is the Auditor General for Wales, the 6 themes to help make scrutiny fit for the future. I think this report's been around for quite a while, about a year and a half or so. So some people may have seen it in other meetings. Fran, are you going to start us off?
Yeah, apologies. How stressful is it when you lose connection and you've got an agenda item? Apologies. And thank you, Nicola, for picking up that last item. In terms of the last agenda item then, so the checklist, 6 steps to help make scrutiny fit for the future. I don't know that members will have much time to go over it today, but basically, if I take you to page 172 of the agenda pack, you will see that in response to an Audit Wales review of public services boards, the Conwy Denbighshire PSB developed an action plan which has been presented to the Scrutiny Committee before. But if you scroll down in terms of recommendation 2, which is on page 174, there is an action for you as the Joint Scrutiny Committee. So the Audit Wales recommendation is that the PSB and their relevant scrutiny should review the 6 themes to help make scrutiny fit for the future. And therefore there was an action that we should table this for a committee meeting. And then on the next page, recommendation 2B, there was also an action for you to consider, which is whether you should co-opt any other people onto the committee. So there are 2 items that you need to consider. In order to make the first action more helpful for you, on page 177 of the pack, you will see that, and thanks to Hannah, she's pulled out the actual main actions that you need to consider in terms of your functionality as a joint scrutiny committee. So I guess the first question is, do you feel you have the time to look at this now? Or do you want to table some specific time to go through it as a scrutiny committee? In terms of the actual actions, if I just go through them really briefly, the first one is considering whether elected members and officers have a sound understanding of their roles and responsibilities. The next one is that are you, in light of current challenges, is there an opportunity to try and look at what you achieve in terms of public engagement? The third one is considering whether scrutiny activity is well planned and sufficiently prioritised. It then goes on to ask you to consider whether current arrangements for officer support and training are there, and if there are regular reviews of effectiveness, and whether you have reflected on the extent to which you can place reliance on the scrutiny functions in their current form. So they're quite big topics to reflect on, and I'm conscious of the time. But as I said, they are 2 actions that are assigned to this committee as part of Audit Wales's review of PSBs. So it's how you want to take it forward, really.
Well, I'm going to suggest that we note those things that we have to comment on, but we need to come back to them at the next meeting, I think, to decide if we've met them or how we can move towards answering those questions, because you know, we've had a difficult year. I know everybody has, and this is the first meeting since January, and if we leave it till another meeting, then we'll be best placed to see, are we getting a feel for what our role is and so on. So if that's not too late for those actions, does that sound okay, Fran?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think there's time today, is there?
Okay. Do you agree, committee? We're
I
happy.
have Councillors Don Milne and Councillors Liz Roberts who'd like to speak, Chair.
Okay, so Councillor Don Milne first of all.
Thank you, Chair. I was just thinking the next meeting seems a long way off, and given the nature of this and the size of the job, should this be actually a separate meeting?
You're right, it's a long way off. At the last meeting in January, we decided to reduce the number of meetings from 4 a year to 2 a year. And of course, it does make it a long way off until the next meeting. So I don't know if that would be a possibility. I mean, I have to say, it sounds a bit dry to have a special meeting for him. It may suffer from quite a lot of absences if we decide.
Chair, can I suggest maybe a workshop? We could perhaps organise an informal workshop with members. Maybe that would be something that you'd like to consider. Sorry, Chair, you're on mute. Sorry, Chair, you're on mute.
Oh yeah, sorry. I just leaned on my mute button. It would be even better if we could have a get together perhaps and get to know each other as well, because we don't know each other, do we, personally? Certainly the Conwy councillors and the Denbighshire councillors.
Yeah.
So that would be a possibility maybe for some time like September or something like that. Let's go to Councillor Liz Roberts first of all. Hi, Liz.
Well, this is exactly what I was going to say, what Dawn has just said. Ideally, a workshop would be ideal because this is an important function. And I do think that we should be giving it the time of day that it merits. So I would really appreciate that, please.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Merrick Lloyd Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also agree that work needs to be done on this. I am not all that familiar with the work that this committee does, and this would give me some more time to learn about what you're doing and how you do it. It's quite complex. I've opened the page here. But if it was included in an agenda where we can access this information, this would make the homework much easier. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else want to make a comment?
Also, perhaps if we have the informal workshop, I know both councils have considered this by their individual scrutiny committees, so we can perhaps bring our experiences from there as well. And then if we organise the workshop before the next meeting, perhaps then we can report formally to the scrutiny committee on your findings, which then obviously Fran can use for responding to the WAO report.
Do people want to do it virtually or try to leave it until September and hope that we can meet?
Ideally, it would be if we could meet, wouldn't it, really? But that's a big question.
Yeah. So, well, we'll leave that until later to sort that out. But it would be good to meet. I think everyone's itching to get out and meet each other again, aren't they? And that would be a good occasion to do that. And it's also much easier to discuss this sort of thing when you're sitting around a table together rather than on Zoom. It's a bit, one person at a time. You can't chip in and add things to a conversation, can you? So we'll. Is that okay, Dawn? Just looking to Rhiannon as well to see if that would be a possibility, perhaps early in September.
Yeah, I mean, I suggest that we set a date, and whether like I say, I don't know the situation with both councils at the moment, because obviously we're not holding meetings in public, or members aren't coming into buildings. So let's set a date, and then we can decide nearer the time where we are both council wise, whether we are allowing members to come in, and if our offices are open. So at least if we can get a date in the diary, I think that would be a start, I think.
Are you going to suggest some time now, or?
Oh no, I can liaise with the chair and the vice chair,
Okay.
and Rhiannon.
Yeah. Okay. So
can I just say, Chair, not 16th of September, because that's partnership scrutiny.
Okay. Yeah. I think when that's arranged, we'll be looking at the schedule of all the meetings in county council, so they won't coincide anyway. Okay. All right. So can we just have a proposal that we've what's the phraseology? We note the presentation on those reports. Someone to propose?
Councillor Nigel has got his hand up.
Thanks, Arwell. Thank you, and thanks, Liz, for seconding. All those happy with that? Quick show of hands. Thank you very much. So on to the last item, review the forward work programme. Now, we've got some, let's just get to the right page.
181.
181. There's a challenge, aren't there? That's a challenge, the number of pages we have to read for these meetings. Which is one of the comments that I'm sure we'll be making in September when we meet informally. So there are some items there. We've already said that Nicola's going to bring the draft wellbeing assessment back to us at that meeting, and on the 12th of November. And one thing that we have been doing, we've had various services that are part of the PSB, and they've been addressing how they've fitted into the work of the PSB and the benefits of being a partner and working with other partners. Betsy Cadwallader, we had invited them a while ago, I think, but there were problems with dates. And then, of course, with the pandemic, it's been very busy. But that would be a good possibility, I think, and well-timed to look at in November. So I don't know if we could send an invitation if the committee agreed that that would be a good item to scrutinise. Can we just have some hand signals or something? Yeah, okay, thanks. And so that's two fairly chunky items. Now, I'm going to suggest another one, and that is it's to do with the PSB and how it responded in the pandemic. And it will be November by then, so let's hope that things are starting to get back to normal. The thing is, what were the benefits of being in a PSB? How do all these different organisations that meet together regularly, did it help in the response, or did they revert back to almost working on their own? And if they did that, then the PSB is not fulfilling its role. And I know PSBs are early, and that's the sort of thing that I wanted to explore. I don't know if that sounds like something that we could do. So it's lessons learned by the PSB during COVID and what will be done differently in the future. It's that sort of thing. Fran.
Just to respond on that, just what we'd written in the annual report, Councillor Graham, that there was a lot of collaboration, but it was done under the civil contingencies regime. So that's what we tried to report, that whilst the PSB cancelled some of its meetings, it wasn't that the senior managers weren't collaborating, it was just under a different format. So I just want to clarify what that agenda item would be. Would it be a report in terms of what the Local Resilience Forum has done as opposed to the PSB?
I certainly think they come into the equation, don't they? But if the PSB has the role to bring together all of these different public bodies to make things work better, and then if there's an emergency, they work through other agencies, it doesn't seem to be fulfilling. I just wanted to explore that. I don't know if other people agree with what I'm trying to say or not. Jeanette.
I think what you're trying to say, and what I would like to know is, how would they react differently?
Yeah. In the future. Yeah. Anyone else want to make a comment?
I guess, Chair, I was just going to say, I think from what I understand, it goes into like an emergency mode. So PSB is more retrospective, almost like reflective, looking about changing going forward. Whereas when you're in an emergency situation, I suppose like the pandemic, everything changes. So it's just a different platform. That's what I understand anyway.
Yes, that's correct, Councillor Rachel.
But the relationship set up through the PSB should enhance working together, shouldn't they? And we just want to know if that happened, and if continuing that relationship will help to make people work together in the future. Are we happy or not? I can't see many happy faces there.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's necessary, Chair. I'm not feeling it, to be honest.
I need a bit more response then from a few more people to guide a decision on that. Councillor Huey Irving.
Yeah,
I'm inclined to think, are we overloading the agenda here? These are heavy, meaty items.
Yeah.
You know, and we, you know, don't want to use the term inadvisably, but you get the point where people are losing the will to live. You know, it's just too much. That's all. I would just raise that thought. That's all.
Okay, and I think probably when we meet together and we discuss the role of scrutiny, it'll be clear whether that's appropriate. So, okay, I'll back down on that. I don't mind at all. That leaves a shorter meeting, and we can hopefully meet in September. Just the last thing that we need to do, unless there's anything else on the forward work programme that we need to look at, the last thing that we need to do is to just approve the dates for the next meetings, some of which some of us may not be here for, because they're after the elections, aren't they? Let's just get back to that. Yeah. November's been confirmed already, so it's just there's one in March, I think, if I remember rightly. Yeah, just confirming March, 11th of March and 21st of October. That's in 2022. Happy with those? Okay, I'll take that. And I just wonder if I could ask Rhiann or Dawn if we can have the dates of the PSB meetings circulated to all members of the Scrutiny Committee.
Yes, no problem. I'll do that for you.
Okay, thank you. Any other points? Okay, diolch yn fawr pawb. Thank you very much. It's been a long meeting, or felt like a long meeting anyway. And the sun's gone in as well, which is a bit of a pity here. But have a pleasant afternoon. Good to see everyone. Diolch yn fawr. Hwyl.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Bye.
Diolch yn fawr.